What's up, guys? Cameron with Gravel Boss here. Today's video, what we're going to go into is going to be um, should you work for a management company? Should you be a subcontractor in any capacity? And the difference between local providers and national service providers, and basically how to not get screwed over. Okay, so the first one that we're going to go into, most of this is probably going to be about national service providers, but I want to get to talk about being a sub just a little bit in general, being a sub for some sort of local contractor that's also a self-performing contractor in your area. Okay. Um, so if you go on to the Facebook groups, most of the time, if someone talks about being a sub, you have all the old dudes who just hate their life and they're like, anyone who needs to hire subs is a piece of shit because if you take on more work than you can handle, then you shouldn't even be in business. You're a horrible person. Okay, that's not true. I have been a sub. I've worked for myself. I've done snow for myself for 7 years. And I have been a sub for every single one of those years in some capacity. Last year, I was almost exclusively a sub, minus no, was it last year? I don't remember. Anyway, doesn't matter. 1 year recently, I was almost exclusively a sub, just because of the type of work that I wanted to do. That has changed. I'm trying to get 100% out of commercial snow removal now, and into residential, but I still do sub work a little bit. The issue, I say within air quotes, is that you're not going to make as much money as a sub as you would holding the contract directly. The caveat being, if you don't know what you're doing, holding the contract directly is like the fastest path to bankruptcy ever. Because if you underbid, or you don't know, or you can't perform on the contract, or your truck breaks down, you no longer plow these lots, and you get sued for a slip and fall because there's 6 inches of snow and then half of it melted. Now there's ice. You're done. Okay. When you're a sub, you don't really have to worry about any of that most of the time, unless you are a sub who also controls the site. Like a lot of times, maybe somebody gets 10 convenience stores, and they're like, hey, can you just take over the 5 on this side of town? You manage all of them. I'll give you 95%, or 90% or whatever. And you're like, cool. In which case you probably would be liable to some degree. Okay. But if someone gets the Walmart contract and you go out there and you take a truck out there to assist them in something else, you have basically no liability, minus hitting things, in which case you're liable for that anyway. So being a sub for local contractors, the pros are as close as you can get to guaranteed pay. You're paid for all the hours you work. You add more revenue to the business. You add more revenue to the business, provided you don't have enough work to stay hooked up all the time by yourself. Cons are lower rates, but that's barely a con if you don't really know what you're doing, right? And then less risk for the pro. Cons are lower rates, and that's pretty much, and then you don't really have full control. That's pretty much it. Really, and on the lower rates thing, here's the situation. If you're an owner op, which is mostly what this series is geared towards, though I am no longer just an owner op, and we're gonna do probably like 200 to 300,000 in snow this year, and I'm still a sub in some capacities. But if you're an owner op, if you look at it, it really only costs very little to run your truck all winter, right? If you're just purely a sub, commercial truck insurance that includes snow removal is no more expensive. At least here, it is the same price or less than regular pickup insurance is. and your pickup and your vehicle insurance is what covers you for if you hit things. Okay, um, you you probably need general liability. I don't know the exact laws. I'm not a lawyer. Don't quote me on this, but I don't know the exact laws about if you need general liability if you're only a sub. I have it because I hold my own contracts, but you probably don't need general liability insurance if you're like an hourly rate sub on some other site. But ask your contractor who you're working for what their insurance requirements are, and then also ask your insurance broker. um, so like you have a truck and you have insurance already, like it doesn't cost you $200 an hour to run your pickup, right? That's not the money that's coming out of your bank account. Most likely, what does come out of your bank, or so what does come out of your bank account is like the cost of fuel, and then like any sort of maintenance. If you bought the plow, you need to depreciate the plow and everything. But fuel for all of my trucks, I have V10s and I have Ford 6.2s, are like no more than $14 an hour, and that's if we're running hard. Like, so you can even round that up to $20 an hour, $25 an hour, anything above and beyond that. What I would factor in for if you're trying, like, you can't. So let's back up just a little bit. Like, you can't, building a business off of being subcontractors is not a viable business plan, and I would not recommend that. You don't want to have 10 trucks that are all running as subcontractors, but that doesn't mean it's not profitable to do. So if your truck costs you $20 an hour, you want to pay yourself some sort of regular hourly wage, let's call it $30 an hour. You're at 50 an hour, plus you want to add in some profit, 40% profit. That brings you up to 90 an hour, right? Pretty much everybody's going to pay $90 an hour at least for a plow truck, and that's still profitable for you to do, especially if you don't know what you're doing. That is a really good way to get into it, outside of just being an employee. Okay. I would recommend it if you're new to snow and if you need more work. One of the sites, so on the, let's see, I still sub work because the trucks that I have are not running to their full. So we're mainly residential only, which means all of our trucks are super hooked up for the 12 hours from 8 to 8 during the day, right? We're not plowing residentials at night, and we're not doing it at 3 o'clock in the morning. So how can we add more revenue to the business? We can run our trucks at night on other people's sites that I don't want to control, because I want to be able to stop at any point, or basically stop. Like if I decide I no longer want to plow, do this night shift thing, I don't want to sign a 5-year contract and be locked into it, right? So what we do is 2 of our trucks go out at night and do commercial sub work. One of them is at 90 an hour, the other's at 125. It's just more money in your pocket. Like, after the cost of running the truck, anything that you're billing in addition, like the one truck runs about 10 hours a night at $90 an hour, I have 30 to $40 an hour profit. I make an extra $400, like on a full night of snow. If it snows 20 times, that's on like a zero tolerance lot. So we're plowing constantly. I'm going to make an extra, what, 10 grand, 15 grand throughout the winter. You'd be stupid to not, right? It is going to wear your truck out faster. Is it going to wear it out $10,000 faster? No. Even as an owner op, if you don't have that much work, take the sub work as long as it's a reasonable amount. Now, you want to make sure who you're plowing for is not shitty. Most likely, you're going to end up plowing for somebody that you know. You're going to agree upon a rate. You're going to go for it. There's really nothing else to that. As long as you're getting paid what I would consider a fair rate, like, or what you would consider a fair rate, just do it. I probably wouldn't work for less than $90 an hour. I don't think that would be worth it. But take a drink of water. I'm saying a lot of words here. Let's get into national service providers, which is why all of you are here anyway. you've never been around snow, a national service provider will take on thousands, and I'm not even exaggerating, thousands of contracts. They will take on every single 7-Eleven gas station, all of their exterior maintenance for a 5-year contract in the entire US. And then what they do is somebody gets the contract for every single one of them, and then they hit up and they're billing absolutely outrageous rates for it, right? So like what you might go plow for $200, they're billing like 1,000. Obviously, one company can't even manage, let alone service 5,000 gas stations. So what they do is they say, okay, well, we're based in New England. We're going to take all of these in this kind of New England area, and then we're going to get rid of this portfolio and give it to someone else. So they take New England, and they're like, hey, we have 3,000 of these 5,000 properties left. Can one of you other brokers take these over? They say yes. They take the ones that they want. Now you're down to 2,000. They call somebody and then they take it. And all of these people are taking a cut off the top. Now, by the time it gets to you, what was being billed out for 1,000 is now being billed out for like 150 because all these people are trying to make a little cut off the top, right? Which makes sense from their perspective, but it's still kind of shitty. Now, it's not as shitty as everyone likes to make it seem, because why would a 7-Eleven try to contact 5,000 individual plowing companies? They're not going to. They want to call one person. They don't care. It's cheaper for them to egregiously overpay on a per push basis or a monthly basis to one person than it is to try to manage 5,000 sites by themselves. That's why national service providers exist. Okay. Here's the hang up. All of them, generally speaking, have poor reputations of not paying their subs or drastically underpaying their subs, and they prey on new companies who don't really know what they're doing. If you have a website that is on Google, they will find you and they will offer you some sort of high profile contract like, hey, we have 11 gas stations in your area. Do you want to plow them? From a new person's perspective, you think, holy shit, someone recognized me. They offered me 11 gas stations. I know where all of these are. That would be amazing. Don't fall for the bait quite yet. The cons, what they'll do is they will lock you into like a 13-page contract that outlines you have to do all of these things in this exact specific way. You are 100% tied to these properties. You have X amount of time to service these properties from the time this triggers. And if you don't do all of these things exactly correct, we are not paying you and you can't sue us. The not suing you thing is a really big thing that people skip over because they think, well, why would I ever need to sue you? You're probably fine to work with as long as you do these things. Just make note of that. They tell you can't sue them. Also, if you don't do all these things in these exact steps, they're not going to pay. Regardless of, like, you could get 2 feet of snow and they could say, well, you didn't service the property, even though you plowed it 10 times. That's just the way that it works. So, the reason that this business model works is because every year new plowers come and they go, and every year there's new ones, and every year the new ones get sucked into doing a bunch of 7-Elevens for way too cheap. And then when they go bankrupt, when the service provider goes bankrupt, the guy actually plowing the parking lot, then they just go find the next guy who's new, and he thinks it's so cool to have all of the 7-Elevens in his town, right? That's how it works. Now, whether you work for them or not is up to you. It can be good, it can be bad. If you need more work, working for them is not necessarily a bad thing. And they're not all as horrible as Facebook likes to make them seem. I am not saying that they're great. I'm saying they're not as horrible as some people like to make them seem. Now, I'm going to pull up what you're going to get sent. Oh, this is the contract for it, and it's stupid long. Okay, here we go. So this is from Case. You could have like the Case, Command 7, Fernando and Sons, and then a multitude of other other national service providers. what they'll do is they'll call you or they'll email you and they'll say, hey, we have all of these bids that we're looking to get. Would you like to look at them? You say yes, and then they send you, and it's just like a series of lists of jobs. Okay, you're gonna log into your like account that they'll make for you, and you're gonna get these. Okay, so it's a list of all the sites that you can service. Let's click on this one. Normally, there's way more than four. They hit us up like maybe November 1st, and there was like, I shit you not, like 100 contracts that were available. So you have your rates. It appears to me that they have bumped these rates up from the first time I looked at them, because I think when I first looked at them, they were offering like 150 a plow for these. But it's November 15th in Alaska. It snowed 3 times and no one's accepted this bid yet. Okay. So you have plowing, 3-inch per push, 259, de-icing. This is where I'm in Alaska. No one uses salt in Alaska. Salt is $700 a ton. $700 a ton. They're offering 166 to salt a site that's going to take probably at least a ton, if not a ton and a half worth of salt. It doesn't take a math genius to know that you're losing like $900 every time you go do this, right? And then any additional work, you have sidewalks. And then, if they need you, they're going to pay plow trucks $90 an hour, dump trucks, dump trailers, etc. Right? It's all pretty straightforward in theory. Now, here's the thing: they're going to offer you these prices, and they're going to be at most 50% of what they have the job at. So if they're paying you 250, they have it at 500. Most of the time, it's less than that. It's down to as little as 30%. Sometimes this time of year, being that it's November 15th in Alaska and it snowed 3 times, most likely they've bumped this right up because they have it at like 400, 500, somewhere in there, and they couldn't find anybody for 150. The fact that this has been listed as available for 3 weeks and they have called every snow contractor and no one's accepted it tells you that this is a horrible site to take on. Also, I just know where this is, and it's like nobody wants it. Now, what you can do is you can always counter their bids. What I would do is I would counter at, if I wanted this, I would counter at minimum double. Okay, so instead of 259, I would bid it at, what does that come out to? 318, I think, or 518, or just a straight 500 to service this. Most likely they're going to accept because no one else has accepted it, except all the low bidders like coming in to take it, right? So you go through, adjust all of these prices, bid it at whatever you need, plus a shit ton, because you might not get paid for some of it. Then they'll come back and they'll either accept or they will recounter somewhere in the middle. Most of the time that happens, and you can either go tell them to go F themselves, or you can accept whatever you decide to do. Now, when it comes to it, so you have the service contract, which is here. And this goes through all of like what you're required to do. From the time of signing, you have what is it? You have a pre-inspection form you have to fill out with date stamp photos. If you miss something and something's damaged on your post, they'll make you fix it. If there's a curb that's already broken, you don't take a picture of the curb. If there's a sidewalk that's slightly damaged, and you don't take a picture of it ahead of time, and then they see it at the end of the year, you will pay to fix it. And they don't care if they have to sue you, if they have to take your house. It doesn't matter. They're going to get it fixed no matter what, except they will collect the money, and then they won't fix that. That's just the way that these people work. Okay. Let's see if this says anything about it. It's pretty self-explanatory. Sometimes. Okay, so then you're gonna have a post trip. So this is where it matters. Unless specifically stated otherwise, you're required to use an application designed by case for every invoice you submit to us. Instructions for using the application will be blah blah. and this is more important, if you do not submit to us except through the application, you agree and understand that we do not accept paper submittals to services rendered, and using the application is the only method by which a service becomes payable to you, and you will not be paid for services not logged in the application. That is the main sticking point. If you don't do it exactly as they say through the app, then you're not going to get paid. And with the app, they will have GPS. You will have to use GPS location on your phone, or your employee who's plowing it will have to have GPS location on their phone, because they geofence you if you mark everything as that is plowed, and they don't mark it as you went in, and they can't pull up on their sheet showing that you showed up to this site and you were at this site for an hour and a half. You won't get paid, because they'll say, well, it takes 2 hours to plow it and you were only there for 5 minutes. What's the deal? You obviously didn't plow. Okay. That's the thing. Additionally, and I didn't see it in this particular one, but I have seen it on some, and I might have just missed it, that you are required to, like, if they have a 3-inch trigger, you have less than 2 hours. You have to be there within 120 minutes of the snow reaching the 2-inch trigger. And supposedly they have some sort of camera that says when it hits 2 inches, but I don't really believe that for all the sites. If you fail to be there within 2 hours of snow hitting that accumulation, you also will be penalized. You will be paid for that plow, but you will be penalized on it a certain amount of money. Okay. In addition, I don't, just off the top of my head, and that is not listed in this particular contract or this work order that I'm looking at now. I believe you have to take pictures showing that you plowed. You have to take pictures showing that you salted, and you have to take pictures showing that the salt was effective on the lot that you applied it to. You may think, kind of, why does that matter? It matters to them so that when they get sued from the other service provider saying that they didn't service the property that you hold the contract to now, they have to be able to prove it. Okay. So there's basically, it's all about creating a paper trail, which it makes sense if these people didn't always try to take advantage of you. Anyway, basically know that, go into this with extreme caution, knowing that if you don't do everything perfectly, you will be penalized, or you won't be paid, or you'll be sued, and you can't sue them back. Okay. That's just, get that out of the way. Now, a lot of people work for these. If you do things correctly, you can get paid, and it can be very lucrative, especially if you can get the prices where you need them to be. I have never worked for Case in particular. I am not opposed to working for Case. Case has the best reputation of all of them that I'm aware of from the really big national service providers. If they had a site that I wanted, I would probably bid on it, but I don't need anything that bad, and I'm not really interested in doing these. But that's what you need to understand going into this, is just like, that is how this type of thing works. You should be very careful, and you need to do everything exactly as they state it, no matter what. Okay. So overall, should you be a sub? Yes, probably. It's not a should you or should you not. It's mostly just a, do you want the work? And does the work sound attractive to you? Most likely you're going to want to grow out of being a sub, and that is good. But in the meanwhile, if you only have 10 or 20 driveways, and you need to make more money, go be a sub for somebody. Call the big names that you see doing all the cool lots, or all the big lots, and just call them up and say, hey, do you guys need any additional trucks? We're running for, come up with a number in your head. Say, like, I have a plow truck available with a 8-foot V plow. I want to run for somewhere in the neighborhood of 125 an hour, and they'll either say yes or no. That's really all there is to it. They're going to have a contract they'll have you sign. You can look at it and see if you like it, or have them sign your contract or whatever. But basically, when you're being a sub for a local guy, set the expectations ahead of time. Like, when am I going to get paid? What do you need for me for invoicing? How often do you want me to invoice you? What tracking do you need, etc.? And they'll say, hey, I need a ticket every night saying you worked at Walmart from 12 to 2 a.m. Sign it, invoice me at the end of every month with your total hours, and get those tickets to me so that I can invoice correctly. That's really all there is to it. I'm not opposed to being a sub. I'm all about it. But anyway, I guess that's all there is to say. We're gonna go ahead and stop this share here. You guys have a good rest of your day or evening or morning or whatever it is. And I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. If you could subscribe, that'd be great. I appreciate it. Go kill it today.